We were delighted to be invited by Fraser to talk at today's event, and we would like to thank Fraser for organising, the HMRC for hosting, and of course you for spending time, at least virtually, with us this morning. I'm sure many of you will have heard the term always-on employee engagement, whether that is from the likes of Josh Bersin, articles in Forbes, the CIPD, or indeed Engage for Success. It is a term we coined in 2013 to best describe what we were trying to do to change the way employee engagement surveys can be approached, and since then it has gained more and more recognition. This morning we will walk through what it is all about, who we are, and what made us develop this new approach. We will share our thoughts, opinions and strategies, some of which you may find somewhat disruptive, and we make no apologies for that. The fact of the matter is engagement surveys have been stuck in a rut for decades and needed a rethink and overhaul. This talk will hopefully not just shed light on what it is and why you might consider it as an approach, but it may challenge some traditional thinking and will at the very least give you things to think about as you consider your engagement program. Lastly, this is not intended to be a sales pitch. We do love to sell our platform, of course, but we are only just one player in this space. There are now a few alternative approaches to a traditional engagement survey, and we hope this talk will encourage you to investigate what could work for your organisation. If it happens to be Thymometrics, then of course we will be delighted to talk further, but that is not the purpose of this presentation. So, who are Thymometrics and how did it all start? Our two founders are Hugh Tonks and Jerry Pett, both of whom do not come from HR, L&D or even organisational development backgrounds. They are both in fact seasoned technologists. Hugh has an MA from Cambridge in computer science and has spent many years in research and development of software. Jerry is a physicist who moved into software and spent many years in consultancy, as well as working for some leading telco companies. What is interesting about this is precisely that different background that has enabled some fresh new thinking. They didn't just tinker with the traditional survey format, they completely reinvented it. Something that would have been hard to do from within the industry. Always On was Hugh's brainchild. He met Jerry in 2012 in Cambridge and they founded Thymometrics in order to turn Hugh's concept into a reality. It was a simple idea and they both thought it would be a simple task taking a few months at the most. How wrong they were. It took nearly 18 months whilst getting input from leading HR directors before they were able to launch the first commercially viable product. So why did Hugh come up with the concept? Well, Hugh was an employee and every year he would fill in his annual employee engagement survey, and every year Hugh was struck by a number of things. It takes too long, typically 30 minutes or more, answering many questions. The questions themselves are not always relevant. Because you only get a chance to ask once a year, the temptation is to ask everything. And that means that some of it is completely irrelevant to some employees. The questions can be difficult to answer. Deciding whether you mildly agree or strongly disagree with a certain statement in many cases is just not enough. What do you do when you can't find the answer that fits? Questions can be sometimes repeated. You think, didn't I already answer that? And then, why are you asking me that again? What did I say last time? You feel like you're being tripped up and somehow not trusted. The irony that the traditional employee engagement survey is a disengaging experience for employees was not lost on Hugh. And then there's the wait for the results. In some cases, as much as 2 or 3 months have passed. A lot can change in that time, and most organisations now recognise that delay between data gathering and analysis means you could no longer be looking at the truth. Then there's the broadcast announcements. The company announces, hey, fantastic news, 70% of you think the leadership are amazing. Well, that's great, but that message equally just disenfranchises the 30% of people who don't think like that. It was clear that this was not the optimal way to understand how people feel about working for their employer. So, this was Hugh's solution. He introduced the concept of factors. Most companies want to know about a core number of things like the environment people work in, their manager, whether they have the resources to do their job and such like. Hugh said, let's define these as simple factors and list these for our employees. Then let's just ask 2 questions on each factor, the same question on each factor. That is, how satisfied are you with this factor and how important is it to you? Incidentally, asking how important something is to employees is simply missing from over 95% of the surveys we looked at. It is a vital piece of the puzzle, however, and without it, conclusions can be at best misguided. But with it, you get a full picture. Hugh also said we should run it in the cloud, and of course we should. And lastly, he said, let's do the analysis in real time so that there is no more waiting for results. So, what does this look like? So, our version of Always On looks like this. You can see the factors down the centre of the screen with explanations of what they mean in plain, simple English. Just by hovering the mouse over each factor, employees can see what you mean by that factor. And then we give 2 pairs of sliders to express how important each is and how satisfied they are. Everyone gets this. It is simple, open and transparent. No more questions you can't answer, or answers that don't fit, or even feeling you are being tricked. This says, this is what we want to know, and it gives employees an easy way to express exactly how they feel. You might notice we've removed the scales too. The fact is, we're trying to gauge how people feel, and that is not an exact science. We should know, of course, with Jerry being a physicist and Hugh studying computing and maths at Cambridge. We would love it to be an exact science, but it isn't. So our take is you stop vexing over whether something is a 7 or an 8 or a 9 out of 10, or whether it's an agree versus a strongly agree. We do allow open text questions too. These are always a great source of insight. Most importantly, it takes just 3 or 4 minutes of an employee's time, and it's easy for them to do. That means you can do it more often than once a year, and that is where we open the door to Always On. So, what is Always On? Well, in truth, it differs from company to company. Our clients use the platform in different ways, and that too is important. No 2 companies are the same, and we don't believe in a prescriptive, you must do it this way, will work for all. Some of our clients get pulse feedback at regular intervals, once a quarter is popular. Some of our clients pulse just part of the organisation as and when they need to. Some also use the platform to get annual snapshots, but most importantly, the platform is always there all year and it can be used on an ongoing basis. Employees can see this as an anonymous channel that they can use at any time, as well as, of course, allowing regular pulsing. This helps companies drop the once-a-year approach and instead treat employee engagement as a business-as-usual process, which, of course, it should be. This also helps companies manage their resources better, so you don't have this big annual event that consumes everyone's time and effort. Instead, it spreads throughout the whole year. Incidentally, there are many supporting mechanisms such as auto reminders and alerts about incoming comments to make this completely pain-free for HR and internal comms. Here are just some samples of real-time analytics. We have dashboards that let you see at a glance the barriers to engagement across the entire organisation. You can slice by various demographics, teams, length of service, pay grade, or whatever you choose. Incidentally, we strongly advocate that these are shared as broadly as possible. Many of our clients allow managers to access their dashboards directly, and that is exactly as it should be. Let's face it, employee engagement is not an HR issue. It is something that every leader and every manager needs to own and embrace. Moving to always on helps reinforce this and allows HR to be more facilitators. We also provide deep dive tools, helping managers understand where the spread of opinion for a specific factor and whichever demographic segment they wish. This, for example, shows an opinion heat map together with some more traditional stats. And, of course, always on means you can track trends and changes as they happen, whether that is in response to an intervention, action plan, reorg, company announcement, or even external events like the budget, Brexit, or even the US election. Here are some better known customers that use Thymometrics as an always-on solution. Different clients use our platform in different ways, and worthy of note, some use Thymometrics alongside their annual survey. For example, Redgate have used Best Companies to help with their recruitment, and then Thymometrics as their day-to-day employee feedback platform. The Redgate model is very much always on. We remind employees when they have not contributed for more than 3 months, and they can and do access whenever they wish. Managers use the dashboards as part of their management reporting. Solar Winds worked with us to develop an exit bolt-on, so we can now capture the opinions of leavers and unearth where and why top talent is leaving. They use the main platform on a pulse-style basis, and the exits run alongside all of the time. RMS worked with us to develop and roll out our 180, 360 versions of the platform. And the CIPD have adopted Thymometrics for their internal use and also as part of developing a best practice suite. They have provided open access to analytics for all managers who have 5 or more reports. In summary, this is what Always On can do. We eliminate the pain for end users. The open, honest and transparent approach drives open and honest feedback. With no pain for employees, you can gain regular feedback. This helps transform engagement from an annual process to a business as usual activity. By moving away from numbers like engagement scores and benchmark data, we allow managers to focus on where can I improve next, encouraging a practice of continual development. As it is real time, you can track trends and changes over time, not just to head off any developing issues before they have time to fester, but also to track that initiative and action plan and see if they're working as they should. Although we haven't really touched on this in this talk, Thymometrics also contains a two-way communications tool. This allows anonymous and targeted dialogue across the platform, enabling managers to explore and discuss issues with potential changes whilst employees maintain their anonymity. This communicate feature also acts as an always-on listening device, an open channel for employees whenever they need it. That's the end of our session for this morning. We sincerely hope you have found it interesting and thought-provoking. If anyone wishes to contact us, we can be reached via the web, on Twitter, email, or even good old-fashioned telephone. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.